Welcome to Texas Truck Channel. I'm Brian, and behind the camera we have
Sam.
Sam's the man. We're going to film a couple side-by-sides today, and this is the one that I'm covering today. I'm actually really excited about it. We've had this thing for about almost 3 months, and let me tell you right now, it has become a member of the family. We have really enjoyed it, and we don't have a Monroney for this like a truck review, but I've got notes for you. And the biggest thing you're going to want to know about is the price. 2025 Polaris Ranger 1000 XP Northstar Texas Edition. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But this is basically the top trim of the Ranger. It's the one you kind of want. And we had it just before Christmas, this thing showed up. And in the winter weather, can I tell you, a glass windshield has been the single best thing you can have on this. In fact, if you, for some reason, didn't want a Northstar and you live in a different climate, if nothing else, get this windshield. It is really good. That's my favorite thing on this. The price on this is $36,999. That's a lot, but this is top trim and it has heat and AC and glass and windshield wipers and sprayers and all the things that you can imagine. It's pretty awesome. Some basic specs before we get too far into it. 65 inches wide, which is standard width for most of this class UTVs. This has the ProStar 2-cylinder twin, 82 horsepower out of a 1000cc unit. That's pretty good. And the big news is we have the second gen PVT transmission. More on that in just a minute. That's probably the biggest update for 25. Pretty similar to the previous one in terms of like what it is and what it looks like. In fact, we had the bronze metallic paint that we had on the last Texas Edition Ranger we had, which we still love very much. So coming down front, things you get with the Texas Edition is a full metal plate on the bumper, skid plate, and you get a 4,500 pound synthetic line winch with auto stop. I like this thing a lot. It has a remote. It's actually, we never ever pulled it out, it's still in here. And it has hard keys on the dash inside. Just a good winch. I have used these from Polaris more than I care to admit, and they're very functional. They work very well. Lighting, you do get LED lighting all around on this, low beam, high beam, and that's it, because it's not a technical road going vehicle, and these aren't technically road legal in Texas. There's no blinkers on these, but there are plenty of kits for that. And some people have figured out how to make these things road legal for farm use and other things in Texas. So stay tuned on that. We might be working on something for ourselves with that just to make it more entertaining. Coming down here, I want to point out, get a good profile, Sam. What do you think the approach angle was on this?
Like 85 degrees.
It looks like 95 degrees to me. Like if you took the bumper off, it's got to be 95. Like you can like go up a slanted wall. It's pretty cool. We talk about trucks on our channel, and if you are new to our channel, we review trucks and SUVs mostly, but we love these because in Texas, you can't have one of these without a truck to haul it around. So it is in our wheelhouse. And they're becoming incredibly popular in our area. There's off-road parks and the places like that. We talk about approach angle all the time. In fact, this morning, Sam, we filmed a Toyota truck. And what was the approach angle on that?
24 degrees. That's a lot more.
Yeah, this is like 3 times that. So there's no issue on the hill test. In fact, we've hill tested these before. It's about 3 seconds of like, okay, that was it.
Yep.
So we're not even gonna film that today. Suspension-wise, you do have Sachs dampers on this, and you do have some preload adjustability down here. We left it in the standard lower preload, but there's notches here to increase it. So if you add some more weight on here, you want to keep that spring preload a little more to give you a little more lift in the front. That's what that collar is for. So if you had more weight in the front, you could do that. Something I do like coming from the car world is that you have anti-sway bars in the front, just like a road going vehicle, and it does help very well. It works very well. Wheel and tire wise, these are 29 inch by 9 by 14 Pro Armor X Terrains. This tire on pavement or on dirt, it's not too loud, and it works in deep mud. We've had this thing about this deep, probably more like this deep in water, and these just paddle right through, no big deal. So they've got it for the job to get it done. You got your reflector right here, which actually looks pretty good. And because it's a Northstar, you have full glass. That's a big deal. Full glass on these is very helpful to keep elements out. Not as helpful for NVH and quietness. Don't think you're in a pickup truck with this. You still have the noise from these tires and the wind that comes around it and that kind of stuff. But when it's frigid ice cold and that heater's on there, you're gonna be so glad you have this. It keeps that heat in here. Now let's talk about the bed itself. This thing is good to haul 1,000 pounds of payload in the bed. 1,000 pounds, that's a lot. The overall payload on the vehicle is 1150, so if you weigh more than 150 pounds, you're gonna max out the payload with a full load back here. But it's pretty cool. You do get an assisted dump bed on it. I mean, you can one-hand tip this. My mother-in-law could tip this, no problem. In fact, she has. I used to own one of these. Here's that ProStar engine. It is a twin, and look, I'll just put it out there. I've driven a lot of these before. This is a very smooth power plant. In fact, the 4-cylinder version of this is in the Polaris Slingshot and the Razor Rs. It's a good power plant. It's very smooth, it's very linear. It even idles smooth, it makes a fun little sound. I'm a big fan of it. 82 horsepower is plenty to move this thing around. You do have your intakes over here for your PVT breather. You also have an air intake over here. That's also PVT. There's your air intake right there going up that pipe over there. So this thing's good to go in the water about this deep without concern. Pretty impressive. Try that in your pickup truck. It's just not gonna happen. Now, Bringing this bed down, you want to point out some things in here, Sam. We've got tie down points, 4 in every corner. We've also got infinite slots to make your own rigs in here. There's all kinds of accessories. If you're doing farming, ranching, you need gun racks, you're gonna go hunting. The thing I've liked the most, I actually used this rig to help build a playhouse right after Christmas this year. This became my saddlebag. It was perfect. These little rings right here, you see these, Sam? Those are meant for a 5-gallon bucket to sit there. So you can put 4 wide in here. They lock in, you can run 1 strap around them and they don't go anywhere. So you can keep like your hardware for this project here, your bolts over here, your miscellaneous tools in that bucket. It's really handy for ranch work. I like it a lot. On the bed, let's see if it's assisted like a normal truck. It is not, but it's also so light, it just doesn't matter. You do have 4 cup holders because this is America. And that's pretty much all there is for that. Coming on down here, you do have the Texas edition comes with the high arc A-arms, which means instead of this control arm dipping down like a Chevy Tahoe or Suburban does, which looks kind of crazy to me, it dips up, which means when you go through deep ruts, you just clear everything, always. It always does. That's very helpful. You do have a 2-inch receiver back here, unlike the Sportsman Polaris's. I do love that there's a 2-inch receiver in here. I wish every ATV, UTV had one because we use this thing to move trailers around on property a lot. Good to tow, 2,500 pounds, not nothing. So pretty good with that, we're happy with that. You do get 4-wheel disc brakes around, and you have your upper knuckle is aluminum, which is kind of neat to see that, very strong. But I like that all the control arms are steel because if you have a problem on trail, you can trail weld this thing back together without thinking about it. That's actually a benefit. I wouldn't want a ranch style rig to have aluminum control arms. I do appreciate that. That being covered, the suspension travel is good for 10 inches on all 4 corners. That's a lot, which is why this thing rides as well as it does. All right, before we hop in the interior, I want to show you the nitty gritty of what we have up here. I'm going to put this in the unlock mode for this cover, and it pops right off just like that. It's a little clamshell. And then here's all your tidbits. You have washer fluid here because you have actual wipers. And then you also have your intake breather right here. So this is how you make sure this thing doesn't sink in a pond. In theory, even if your belt gets wet, that's your air intake. Holy cow. It is water cooled, so you do have both a radiator, and look right there, what's that, Sam? That's a condenser for the air conditioner. That's pretty cool, I like that. You've got more breathers up here for more PVT items. So it's pretty cool. I love that all your accessory relays are right here, so you can add on exterior lighting and different things like that really easily right here. I like that a lot, it's pretty cool. So let's pop this guy back on and we'll hop onto the interior. All right, Sam, you'll notice that this thing has suicide doors on it, which are very, very wide opening. Look how wide these open. It's very helpful. My kids love to swing it too far, which is kind of annoying, but it just has good egress and access to get in and out. That's pretty cool. The seat does move forward and back for taller, shorter riders. Let's go ahead and hop in here and show you what the deal is. I'm a 6'4" dude, and headroom is definitely not a problem. Never has been in these. This mirror is a school bus style mirror. It's domed, but it moves a lot, Sam. Do you know why? Because this puppy pops up because you're not stuck in a closed cabin when it's a hot summer day or it's a nice cool spring day. You flip this thing up and you've got all the angle you need to see what you need to do. Now, the benefit of this is you can then roll your power windows down if you want to leave your doors on the rig, and they've got good open air. The downside is the back doors are crank windows, which are kind of novel for children. They don't know what those are. But if you were born before yesterday, you know exactly what those are, and it's nice to mess with them. Hop onto the interior. This is traditional Ranger. If you've ever been in a Ranger, Sam, this is just like the one in 24. Down here, a light switch, so you can get a low beam, high beam. That's pretty nice. And then your winch controls are down here as well for out and in. Your egress is just a door handle right there. You've got a grip and a good pockets on all the doors. These are your front windows. And this is traditional Polaris. If you've ever driven any Polaris, you know what happens in here. You also have a 7-inch ride command system, which I like a lot. You actually have a gauge set up here. You can configure them and change them however you want to. You have defaults on here for speedo and RPM. And then you also have Polaris's navigation. And the benefit of this is when you have a buddy and his Polaris back there, you can pair these things up. So when you are off grid without reception, you can see where your buddies are. So you match them up before you go on your ride. And it's actually a really, really well thought out system for that purpose. It's pretty good. You also have a stereo in here. This thing has the JBL stereo. These are weatherproofed, they're water resistant and all that kind of stuff. In fact, when I clean this thing out, I actually just pressure wash the entire interior. I don't directly hit the speakers, but I don't have to worry about it. Up top, you have an LED light for the interior, and you do have some sound deadening, which is better than nothing, but it's still pretty drony in here. Now, Sam, the biggest news for this is not only Northstar HVAC, the thing works well, heat and cold, there's your compressor switch. The bad news is the lowest fan, pretty loud. Yeah, once you have everything closed up, it gets pretty noisy in here. You do have your traditional 1-wheel drive, diff lock, and then 4-wheel drive right here like most Polarises have. I like this, it just works really well, it's a go-to. And then you have your throttle map in here. This is not a mode per se, but it's throttle mapping. So work is more linear throttle, slower to react, standard is normal, and the performance is hyper reactive. So that's what you have there. Cup holders front and rear, you also have on the tops. You have water resistant upper storage, so you've got a weather strip seal on this, so you can put things in there and not worry about it.
It also has a drain for if you ever get water in there.
Yeah, good point, Sam. That's a good point. In fact, these cubbies have drains too, and they drain straight to the floor. Ask me how I know. Then you have the glove box right here, which also has a weather strip, so you can put phones or you can put perishables and have a little bit of protection there. Here's your vents for defrost up top, and then you have AC vents here. There are no vents in the rear. They're not quite there yet. You have expansion panels here, and the biggest deal, Sam, is right here. This is the Gen 2 PVT. And if you've driven Polaris in the past, you go, oh, I'm gonna put it in together to get it up there. Not anymore. Now you just, it's like velvet butter. It's crazy. Let me show you what a non-Gen 2 feels like. All right, we are over into a Gen 1 PVT, and it has a lot more effort to get it done. Those 2 fingers still. Now it's not on, but it's not much better when it's on. And this is better than the old Ranger. The old Ranger has the steering, the shifter up here. It was even worse. This one's actually pretty good, but it is stiffer nonetheless. All right, that's pretty much it for our Ranger. We've had a great time with this long-term loaner from Polaris. Thanks again for sending it out. And I've got to tell you, I got to close on some truck notes. We're a truck channel, and I got to land there. I relate this to the F-150 of the segment. And what I mean by that is it's a crew cab, it's 4-wheel drive, you can take your kids with you on the trail, you can go do work you need to do, but it's not full bed, right? This much is for people, and you have some amenities that work well, like your all-wheel drive system is super intuitive, your shifter is super easy to use, the electric power steering is flawless. You can use it, your spouse can use it, your kids can use it if they're old enough to use these things. It's just a good, well-tuned package, it's very approachable. Now, $36,000 is a lot, but that's the top of the range for this thing, and they go way higher on other types of UTVs. So if you need any kind of property work, if you're hunting, fishing, if you're a rancher and you just need to do fence work, but you also go deer hunting, this does both. So it's pretty cool. I like it, and it's really grown on me. I'll be honest with you, when I know it's a good vehicle, so I'm Googling what they're going for locally at my dealers, and that's what I've been doing with this. All that being covered, anything else, Sam?
No, I think one thing that should be said is that you can get one for about $15,000. Right?
Yeah, that's right. So right now I was actually looking locally. If you don't do the North Star with the heated AC and the whole glass package, in fact, there's no windshield, although I'd add that, it's about 15 and change with some current rebates. So there's a huge range on these things. If you're looking for one, just start digging, they're out there. All being covered, thanks for watching, see you on the next one.